killed the market for, of course. So now this had killed the market for, of course.
Good evening, everyone who is watching me here on Black Hot Network. It is a Monday. We'll be back from that long weekend, and that is from weekend normally starts. On Thursday evening up to Monday morning. That is how long the weekend is. My name is INNOSSETU. Let me hope you're doing good. For those that are watching me from Twitter, Black Hot Network, Facebook, Black Hot Radio Station, Black Hot Network Radio Station, and of course YouTube, Black Hot Network 2. Today being a Monday, our topic today is going to be, of course, we are going to talk about Rwanda, how, of course, how election campaigns have started in Rwanda and how they are moving. So, ever since 1996, actually, we have been seeing one face in Rwanda ruling the people of Rwanda, and that is General Kagame. General Kagame has been in power since 1996 in Rwanda. This guy has been Paul Kagame. So this guy has been, of course, has been winning the election since 1994. Before he came to power, there was that guy. Actually, I think some people say that before that, the president of Rwanda prior was Habyarimana. So it was after that plane crash, then the genocide started. Because it was a Hutu. So a lot of people claimed that like that plane crash, it was based on tribal basis. Because munyonyo omwo yalimu n'owe bulungi ate bannanga bahutu ne babikubira omwo bonna bali bahutu ne bagikuba ne bafiiramu. So that's how genocide started. So a lot of people were saying that it is the Tutsi that organized that plane crash. It was not even a crash. But we see that we see that Mr. Kagame, Paul, is running for the fourth term in Rwanda, and he has been the country's de facto leader since 1994, when his 10 rebel group, the Rwanda Patriotic Front, seized power at the end of the genocide directed at members of his Tutsi ethnic group. So he won the last presidential elections in 2017 with nearly 99%. Sirabangako wano ne mu Uganda the last we had in Uganda Museveni got over 52 something. So Kagame normally wins with 9 with the 90s so he won with nearly 99% of the vote. So it means it actually it means 1% of the people in Rwanda don't like Kagame. So the 60th Kagame is by the way 6 years now. So the 60-year-old president, the 66-year-old president Kagame has faced criticisms from rights groups for cracking down on the opposition, but he hasn't. He has fearlessly defended the Rwanda's record on human rights, saying the country respect respects political freedom. But earlier this Sunday, the stampede, the Ministry of Local Government reminded those participating in campaign activities to follow the instructions given by those in charge to ensure the safety and the tranquility of those participating in a campaign. So, uh, So we see that the RPF, this was the rebel group which uh, uh, Kagame, of course, was leading before they came to power, the RPF or the Nkotani organization. He says that he will continue to closely monitor those injured in the conflict. So a lot of people, of course, at the starting of this campaign, so at the beginning of the campaigns were so deadly. Actually, one person lost his life in these campaigns. So for me, I thought Rwandan people, they are so calm, like they don't care about anything. But is there any opposition leader in Rwanda? I thought there, like when it comes to Rwanda, law is law in Rwanda, and law applies in Rwanda. It's not like Uganda. It's not like Kenya. We saw the violent riots. How many riots have you had in Rwanda ever since? How many successful ones, not attempts? Have you ever had any riot in Rwanda which is successful? And by the way, do we have opposition in Rwanda? Do you know any opposition leader in Rwanda?
But people love Rwanda.
Eh?
Everyone praises Rwanda. It's a peaceful place, I guess. People who don't know what goes around.
So election started in fire. I said, campaign started in fire. So because there were even, of course, a deadly crash at the rally as one election started. So we see that one person has died, and dozens were injured during the crash at an election rally for Rwanda's President Paul Kagame. As they see that campaigns for July general elections began on Saturday last week, with Mr. Kagame holding two rallies in northern Rwanda over the weekend. So the crash happened on Sunday in Rubavu district, where 37 people were injured, four of whom were hospitalized with serious injuries. A statement from the Ministry of Local Government in Rwanda. What I liked about Rwanda, local government ekola Rwanda, okimanyi nti edduuka erya health center teri mu Rwanda bakoperatingirayo.
Local government in Rwanda eringanga police.
ekola
Local government in Rwanda eringanga police, yeah.
kale era kale oba namba ntya nti kuba kati olaba iyo bagifuula na minisitule enamba
Anti omusajja yalina ekintu
iyo bagifuula na minisitule enamba nti erimu buli kimu, erimu amalwaliro bikyani byonna byonna naye nga local government yebyekolerako nga wona sente zigenze mu local government.
intention y'ekyo kintu okitegeera bulungi. Kagame kisooka tagenda kuteekawo gavumenti nti buli muntu atandika okomplaininga gavumenti oyo oba ani ali awo oyo mu gavumenti ebeere eparticipatinga mu local gavumenti. Sente zituuka ku local gavumenti zijja ya other places.
Because I've looked at like when we look at the local government of Uganda, it's not working. Well, fine. Bakola.
Hi,
Jabba says, hey, you too. It's 9:14. I am here. Hello, Jabba. Let me think. Your weekend was so massive. Let me hope everything was moving on. Let me hope everything is moving on well out there. Yeah, we are talking about Rwanda election campaigns starting. So I was asking Maria here, like, do we have opposition in Rwanda really? Because like the law in Rwanda, it works. The law works in Rwanda. That's what I've been telling Maria here earlier. Or if at all you're ready to make like if you're ready to make riots in Rwanda, just be ready to be imprisoned, if not killed by the officials, by the government officials, just like the strike we have been, the riotings we have been seeing in Kenya recently. It doesn't happen in Rwanda. I've been, of course, talking about how this Kagame guy has been winning elections in Rwanda by 99%. I was like, how does it happen? Like in Uganda, we see at least President Museveni has been trying to maintain himself in power, but he has been organizing elections and he has been winning in 50s, 52. He doesn't exceed 60. He's in between 50. He always wins between the percentage of 50 to 60. He doesn't exceed there. But we see in Rwanda, for the recent years, actually, the last time these people had elections, the Rwandan people had elections, it was in 2017, and Kagame won by 99%. And this is extremely a big percentage when it comes to presidential elections. It can happen in these other positions like members of parliament, like local government staff. But when it comes to president, someone wins by 99% election, gets votes 99. So it means only 1% of the people don't like Kagame in Rwanda. So I was like asking, do we have opposition in Rwanda? And really, does this opposition work in Rwanda? And because Kagame, this is a guy that has been trying to eliminate all the opposition leaders in Rwanda. And if we look at the opposition, the opposition that is in Rwanda, the opposition leaders, these are the weakest people I've ever seen. And I guess they're even paid by the state. So I think that they've been paid by the state. So if at all someone won by 99% the last elections, and that was in 2017, so what are we expecting to see in to see in this forthcoming elections, what are we expecting to see now in Rwanda? So apparently, uh, apparently, we see that some of the factors that we could attribute uh, to to the weakest and opposition in Rwanda, it can be, we can attribute it to the weakest, of course, to government policies like the censorship of the press. There is limited freedom of expression in Rwanda, whether you like it or not. In Uganda, I've seen it in Uganda, like you see very many people drawing cartoons of the president of Uganda, Museveni. I've seen where some people have even gone far to edit some videos, not even cartoons, some videos like live videos when the president is dancing naked, when the president is doing stuff naked. In Rwanda, it doesn't happen. You do shit, they imprison you. And I've looked at very many Rwandese, they're not on social media because today social media is one of the tools that push elections, not only in actually in Africa, the entire world. Like the media pushes something to, and of course to a mass audience than anything. Prior to social media, people just used to move, like they used to move to villages, stuff that, yeah, true, they moved this time around, but social media puts like there is a way it projects everything that happens to a wider and a massive audience. So when we look at Rwanda, has that challenge of course of freedom of expression. The government doesn't give you that because it is one's right to talk. I remember there is a guy in Uganda. He's a minister now. He used to move with the first son of Uganda. He used to, the first son is also preparing to join campaigns in 2026 when Uganda is having elections again. So this was a guy that was always organizing events about this guy. They're friends. So the guy said that you may be having the freedom or the right or the freedom to talk, but you may not have the freedom um, after talking. So it is very okay for you to say whatever you want to say, but are you like you don't have that freedom? You don't have that freedom after saying whatever you're saying. So it is the same thing that is happening in Rwanda. I normally have some few Rwandese friends on Facebook, but very many Rwandese, they're not on social media, they're not Facebook, they're all Twitter, they're not stuff. Why it's because Rwanda is making its own cell phone stuff, I guess, but I don't see very many Rwandese on so unless when someone grew up in Uganda, has been taking studies in Uganda, but I don't see many of them. So I've not seen very many riots in Rwanda still. I've not seen very many riots. I remember there is a woman who wanted to go in for elections in Rwanda. He was an opposition leader. He wanted to be a president of Rwanda, so he wanted to compete with this Kagame guy. That woman died, by the way. He was imprisoned, over tortured stuff. Then that woman died. So another challenge, we see that apart from freedom of expression, that of course that has made Rwanda's politics to be under, if Jabba says, yeah, I'm okay, thanks. Okay, that's great. That's great if you're doing good. Uh, Jib Jabba, that's okay if you're good. So, uh, we see that apart from the freedom, of course, of expression becoming one of the challenges that we see in Rwanda today politically, we see political repression. A lot of people have died in, of course, in the so-called political issues in Rwanda. You come out to, of course, to support a certain group in Rwanda, even when I've seen very many refugees. I've read a lot of articles about refugees being imprisoned in Rwanda. So I've seen a lot of refugees in Rwanda being detained just because of showing a side in Rwanda's politics. So Kagame is always scared about everything that happens. When Kagame was still in the Ugandan army, because Rwanda is an ex army officer in the Ugandan army, was leading that spy network in Uganda. So, and actually within East Africa, Kagame is taken Rwandan army, or Kagame is taken to be to be having one of the armies in Africa that are having that high spying network. So by the time you could be plotting to riot on roads, you're being arrested before the plot becomes successful. You're arrested before the plot you're planning becomes successful. So um, Deep Jabba, I don't know what you have to say about the Rwanda's election. And if at all people are still, if at all Kagame is still winning at 99% in Rwanda, do Rwandan people really know what they want? Do they need change really? If at all they are still voting, for this guy. So, so we see that the campaign for Rwanda, of course, for Rwanda's July 15 presidential election began with the Saturday campaigns last week with 9 million registered voters. But why is it that there are very many voters in Rwanda, Okusinga and Uganda? Do you know that in Uganda, like however much people claim that we have like 60 million people now, but there are over 13 million people that go for voting. So how come?
You can't take away the fact that you still have Hutus and Tutsis.
So how comes that we see that over 9 million people are registered for voting in Rwanda with such a smaller population? Is it that these asylum seekers, they are also Rwandese, they also vote for their president in Rwanda? So this election is coupled with the legislative elections for the first time. We see that Paul Kagame, first elected president by the parliament in 2000 and re-elected by the universal suffrage in 2003 and 2010, and of course 2017 respectively, with over 99% of the vote each time, will face Frank Habineza and Filipe Baimana. Of course, those were his 2017 opponents. We see that the key opposition figures like the Victory Ingabire and of course Bernard Ntaganda are barred from running due to past convictions. So Diane Rigara's candidacy was invalidated due to of course, compliant documents. She was previously executed and, of course, acquitted in 2018. A 2015 constitution revision changed the presidential terms from 7 years to 5 years in Rwanda, allowing Kagame to potentially stay in power until 2034 if re-elected and wins. So, legislative elections have been synchronized with the presidential elections, with over 500 candidates vying for 80 parliamentary seats. Voters will elect 53 representatives, with 27 seats reserved from women, youth, and disabled individuals, choosing indirectly. It is, of course, statistically impossible to have 99% re-election rate. People here are winning 99%. They don't care. People are winning 99%, but all people can't be like on the same side. Even if you buy them, this is mad.
Even
Let
if you
it be
speak the
90.
same
Let it,
truth.
yeah. Let it be 90. Era mubamu empulunguse. Nkimanyi libyo bwe yalikozeeko dda. That's what I.
There is a lot that I don't know where to start from, because no, I don't. Because I don't really I like don't want to spoil people's, you know. I, I don't want to spoil people's, love or feeling towards Rwanda. And this is why, like I said, I even don't know where to start from when it comes to Rwanda.
Because there are a lot of issues to be discussed about.
There are very many issues that may even surprise the world. But at times, I'm not like trying to say the whole Africa is what we are experiencing in Africa is fine. Someone will even say, because I remember some time back, I was trying to address the issues about Rwanda on my page, and a lot of people I had who were swarming all over were people from Nigeria and of course South Africa, and apparently they were like, yeah, if we South Africans had the opportunity that Rwanda is having now, we would be so grateful with the little that we have. And Nigerians say you cannot even say Rwanda is experiencing what we are going through as Nigerians. I'm not trying to say whatever people are experiencing is okay, but we should address uh, these issues. Hakuna tekuli data mukwano gwe. But we should understand that what is going on in Rwanda isn't something that I would wish. Rwanda is developing. It looks beautiful. Technology wise, the standards, the infrastructure, the road, it is beautiful, right? We know very well there is a lot of bloodshed for Rwanda to reach where it is right now. And a lot of countries have gone through this. But Rwanda is no longer a home. That's what I should say. Um, Because in a country where you are not allowed to say what you feel, in a country where you're not allowed to express your emotions, your disappointment, a country where you're not allowed to ask for anything, and some only particular few individuals who are supposed to feel for you, think for you. Recently there was a conference at which Kagame was attending. In his speeches, he said that you can imagine, and I think this conference was around Uganda. You can imagine how people say they don't have freedom of speech. People claim they want power, but these are people who keep insulting leaders. And he was, of course, regarding this to the president of Uganda. If you go to different social media platforms, really, um, freedom of speech is one thing that Ugandans have more than anything. This one I can of course bet my life on it. Freedom of speech is something that Ugandans have. All right. We have even seen people draw cartoons where women are where a woman they crop the face of the first lady on that cartoon, and her knicker is extremely the person's underwear, the first underwear is so extremely dirty, and somebody's squatting on a chair and all that. We have seen a lot of cartoons and a lot of stuff that actually have been done to like the current president. And at times, this dude just sees those things and lets that pass. You cannot do that kind of bullshit in Rwanda. You cannot.
So, like when you look at the opposition, the opposition in Rwanda is so kind, is so silent.
And we have, and you know, there is also something that is very funny. A lot of people don't know that we don't have a lot of people from Rwanda on social media. But we have got a lot of accounts, more especially with the women having the hips and the bums, and usually those are fake accounts. But there are many because, and these accounts in most cases are of course accounts that belong to Ugandan people. If when you go on an account and a Facebook account or whatever, and someone has said from Rwanda, living in Rwanda stuff, we don't have a lot of Rwandese on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. We don't have a lot of these people on social media. So if at all the president of Rwanda does not give people the liberty to do that, because everything, there is no use for you to be on social media when you're going to be tracked. And everything that these people do with their phones and their computers are things that are extremely monitored. There is a certain time where I cannot remember the year, but I think that was the year when Kagame was also doing his campaigns. I guess they had campaigns. There is a young artist who used to sing about songs of freedom, and he had a lot of informative messages throughout his music that, of course, Rwandese used to love and listen. He would make concerts and crowds of people would attend. Yamubesa ku nkono agambye bono guy. So this guy, after during the days of campaigns, Of course, people, he had started creating or having speeches through his music.
Question is comparing Rwanda to North Korea's social repression back.
I think they are quite a little bit the same, except that with Iran, they are the same, but with Rwanda, they hide, and Korea is so very blunt. They are very blunt with whatever they are doing. Korea is so open with the decision it makes, and Rwanda is trying to play the good guy, and this is why a lot of people don't really know. So I was telling you about this guy. After this guy sang about not having the freedom of speech and all that, his concert with the night after his concert, he was found murdered. And there was this female activist who was always also talking about, issues that were attacking or issues that were of course affecting the people in Rwanda. The same thing the next morning, she was found dead and her hands were behind, like she was handcuffed or stuff, like they had put handcuffs on her. Um, she was killed. She was a very smart woman, really, and she died. And such kind of acts are usually done to remind the people that you have to stay silent. With Kagame, Kagame does not arrest, he does not take people to prison. He does not have time for prison. You are up against him, you die the next day. And living in such environment, who wants to die? No matter how, because everyone will think, yeah, I'll go to prison, I'll come back. But he does not give you that room for you being taken to prison or whatever. Now, a lot of people keep on asking, do we have opposition parties? Rwanda has a certain particular game that it usually plays, that Kagame himself creates opposition parties. He goes ahead and decides, like I would say, you know what, so right now, you're going to create a form, something like an opposition. You're going to behave like you're opposing me. This is what he does. And this is why we have a few. So he chooses. And each time because this is the game he plays for the world not to be so judgmental with his actions. So at the end of the day, you find them seated together. And then he starts telling people, we are friends, we are close, but we don't have prominent opposition parties in Rwanda. We don't have non opposition parties in Rwanda. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to opposition, you cannot pretend about anything. Opposition is too much, has got a lot to do with the, struggles, the emotional things. Those, but even I remember there is a certain time where everyone who would come to oppose Kagame's party, they would end up dead. The biggest scenario that, of course, I don't know why he carries out elections. You should not be doing this.
You know what it means by winning by 9.
And when he's talking, if I told you to follow this guy's speeches, he says usually, I'm the one who brought peace in Rwanda after y'all were killing each other. And now you think you have the right to tell me to step down. Those who want me to step down, where were you when we had genocide? It was not Kagame who ended genocide. Those who know the true history know. It was never Kagame who ended the genocide. And we know the people who started all this. We know how Kagame was working together with the French. We know how he was working together with the Israelites, people from Israel. We know the deals he was making with UK. Kagame actually was brought into the picture by a different government entirely. And you see, UK was so very much involved. France was literally involved in the situation of Kagame coming into power. And these people worked together with the current president of Uganda. But at that time, the president of Uganda's interest wasn't Kagame taking power, but rather a certain commander who was called Renjema. Now, Renjema from Uganda, of course, they fought, they were helping each other throughout the military. They fought, and Uganda, and the current president of Uganda took over. So when they took over, remember Kagame was once here. He was once here, even started in one of the, he was in one of the camps here. He even studied in some schools around here. So when they were heading to Rwanda at that time, with of course, when they were heading to, and you said that in 1980s, Kagame fought in Yoweri Museveni's rebel army, becoming a senior Ugandan army officer. After many military victories led Museveni to the Ugandan presidency, Kagame joined the RPF, taking control of the group when previous leader Fred Renjema died. Okay, on the second day of the 1990 invasion of Rwanda. Renjema, Kagame grew up in the exile in Uganda due to the escalating violence between the Hutu and the Tutsi communities in Rwanda during the late 1950s. Now, while in Uganda, he studied at Makerere University in Kampala. He joined the forces of Yoweri Museveni, who later overthrew Uganda's military government. That's in 1986. Kagame became Museveni's chief of intelligence and gained a reputation for incorruptibility and strict discipline. His commitment to enforcing a stringent code of behavior contributed to his rise within the Ugandan military. Now we know that in the late 1980s, Kagame and three other expatriate Rwandan military leaders formed the Tutsi-led RPF. They plotted an invasion of Rwanda to challenge the Hutu-dominated government. Now we know that in 1994, after the assassination of Rwanda President Habyarimana Juvenal, the country descended into genocide against the Tutsi and moderate Hutu. Now Kagame assumed direction of the civil war, leading the RPF forces. The RPF eventually defeated the Hutu extremist forces and ended the genocide. Kagame became the president of Rwanda in 2000, playing a crucial role in rebuilding the nation. Now, that airplane crash was fishy. That
they even killed because that plane over it had about the presidents over to the Rwandan president and the Burundi one. They were all Hutus. So, bali bagenda mu Rwanda.
Now, when you read, if you are trying to check the record, you understand that this particular man known as Renjema is hardly talked about. Now, Renjema coming into power and Kagame, they were in the same, they were all working, of course, with the current president of Uganda. kati be bali e Burundi, Abarundi nabo babeera bwe batyo. Abarundi bafaanana ddala bwe batyo.
So we see that the assassination of Juvenal Habyarimana happened on 6th April 1994, where the aircraft carrying Rwandan President Habyarimana and the Burundian President Ntaryamira, both Hutu, was shot down with surface-to-air missiles as their jet prepared to go.
It was prepared to land in Kigali.
In Kigali, Rwanda, by that time. I never told us.
All 12 people on board were tragically killed. The assassination set in motion the Rwanda genocide, one of the bloodiest events of the late 20th century. Responsibility for the attack remains disputed, with theories suggesting either the Tutsi rebel, Rwanda Patriotic Front, or government-aligned Hutu power followers opposed to negotiation with the RPF as patriotic suspects. We know that, by the way, this that the Kati, the funniest thing, yeah?
I think it's during those days our presidents could fear to move by the land because it is very easy to cross from Burundi to Rwanda, but they could travel through praying out of the
The funniest thing is when someone claims that you brought peace, yet you were at the beginning of the genocide. It is very funny, yeah? Yet your group is the reason why the genocide began. And you know, when it comes to people in Rwanda, unless Rwanda is going to be led by the same kind of people forever, naye koze omutuusi yaliko omukutu bw'alijja buli mutuusi ajja kusasula.
That is the same thing I was thinking about. If at all Rwanda gets a Hutu president now, genocide is over.
It will resume.
I think I can say that
It will resume
because these are the people that most of them are like
it will resume the moment Kagame steps down, unless someone else comes. But if you see a Hutu, unless a Tutsi, because in Burundi we have Hutus, most of the Tutsis who were there were killed. Because when this war started, it even entered Burundi and Congo and some parts of Tanzania here at the border. But the moment we see the Tutsi leadership ending, we are going to experience another genocide, whether the world likes it or not. Because first of all, they are minorities. The Tutsis are minority. The Hutus are the biggest. And you see, even when you look at the face of Rwanda, they will only show you Tutsi. The Hutus are behind. Yet they are the biggest population. Now what? And secondly, 84. And secondly, if Kagame had distributed the resources and the benefits of Rwanda equally, we would see probably people would change. But he's still leaving these people to go through the pain that they have gone through throughout genocide, because for him he feels the Hutus are since they are the majorities are the ones who were killing. You know, the Tutsi, we know that Kagame's group is the smallest population. Now, when you look at the distribution of resources, the distribution of infrastructural development, the distribution of all, let me just call them resources no matter. In Rwanda, they are not evenly distributed. And if at all we are to talk about tribalism,
They're all black.
if at all we are to, no, yeah, I know, Jibby Jabba. If we are to talk about the existence of tribalism, Rwanda should be among the first countries that should be talked about. Jibby Jabba says that we are all black. Yes, indeed. If I ask you a question, Jibby Jabba, right now, can you describe for me how Rwandese people look like? You're going to tell me the majorities of the Rwandese men are
They
tall
have long
and
nose.
slim with pointing nose. Jibjaba, you can drop your comment and tell me I'm lying. And you're going to tell me most of the women are curvy and tall and dark skinned. This is going to be your explanation because this is what the world sees. But the people you usually see on social media, the people you are always seeing, leave alone the poor pictures of the poor people, because we have, if you want to look at the poor, you can go in your Google, Jibjaba, you type in the poor people in Rwanda, you are going to see the poor people, the faces of those people who are experiencing, a lot of distress, all right? Or sorry, of course, unrest. If you type in, you're going to see a particular tall, dark-skinned, short hair, thin, not fat men. You're talking about men, yes. Now this is a Tutsi man. A Hutu man doesn't look like that. The explanation of you see what Jibjaba said? Tall, thin, short hair, Yamacha a Tutsi man like Kagame. That is the features of a Tutsi man. All right. Oli kundere turupu yaffe wano erimu n'Abaganda bazina Olunyarwanda. Gye gyali mirambo. Namba gye. Oyo Muhutu. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. Eyo yali acting ka vidiyo ako. Ebyo biseera baali bakubikako naawe wali ovunda ng'ani yakwebasa mu busubi obulungi. Tulaba bonna baali mu lugabi, baali bazannya firimu oba drama. Ebyo byonna drama. Ezo zonna baali ba actinga. Kati eyo si drama. Kati sheyalingako. You have been blocked. You see? Kati sheyalingako. Naye kati eno smartphone storage. Zaaliwo ebyo ebiseera. Naye naawe ate tokisusa nnyo.
Jibisa says that Rwandan women are fit and curvy. Now Ugandan women.
Forget about that. We are still on that. The majority of these people at the front, or the ones that we usually see during tourism, the women who represent Rwanda, the people who do this and that, they're usually the Tutsis. All right. Now the Tutsis.
And then men are different sizes and weights from what I have not.
Yeah. Uganda is a variety. Uganda is so diversified with everything, not only the culture, the appearance. We have like 50, how many different So anyway, now because in Uganda you don't have a specific, like in Rwanda there are only two. We have the Hutus and the Tutsis,
Muri
and like
n'abatwa
the Tuas are not even the majority. I think the Batwa,
balina 1%.
the Batwa they are down here, border Congo and all that. Mm. The Batwa is on the board. Now, like I was trying to say, the way you have explained to me is exactly what I thought you know about Rwanda people. Now we have got the Hutus.
Uganda.
Uganda has 56 tribes. As
Whenever
small
you
as,
whenever
as
you
small as it is. It has 56 tribes, so you can imagine. And so I guess this is why probably maybe a lot of people fitting in Uganda, because Uganda is so diverse. A place with 56 tribes and people are in this small place and you are living together.
Robert Stowers.
Then no, yes. I didn't ask you about Uganda. So um so now when you see what Rwanda shows you is that a lot of people who are exposed out there, they are the Tutsis. And the majorities of the Hutus are always in silence. It is even very hard for you to see a Hutu in Rwanda's football team. It is very hard for you to find a Hutu working in the Rwanda's hospital. It is very hard for you to find these particular people. Yet they are the majorities. Now, there is something that Jibjaba said that, but they are all black. Or they are all black people. Like they are all Rwandese, they are all Africans. They should. Now, genocide. I'm not going to go back to the past of genocide and the experience that happened in genocide. But as Kagame, as the president of Rwanda, I was expecting to see the change he usually claims to have reached even those other people, because he says I've brought unity. There is no unity. But because Ahutu knows if I speak, I'm going to be killed. So most Hutus study from the US, UK, most of them are come to Uganda, they go to Tanzania. They are trying as much as possible to make sure that they ascertain or they get they become important people within the society, because their home does not benefit them, or their home does not give them that leverage. If at all you are still to go back into history and check who were the Tutsis, then you will understand that these are the people who invaded at that time. We shall get this is why they look a little bit similar with Ethiopians. There are two things, except with the curvy bodies and all that came after the intermarriages of the tribes within the East Africa. You will understand that these Tutsi people, this tribe it has a lot of mixed blood with the Greek people, with a lot. And then the Tutsis are thought to have originated from Ethiopia, and they arrived after the Hutu came from Chad. So the stories, if at all you are to follow the history, they look like Ethiopians, except with the curvy part of those women. But most of the Hutus look like Ethiopians. And if we are still, somebody's going to say, and I see a lot of people are, Ethiopia is the origin, whatever, those bullshit stories. But we know the invasion and what happens within the indigenous people of Ethiopia and others, which is probably going to be a story of next time. Because when it comes to history, it becomes the history of the origin of some people. And you realize that there was this kind of program or the plan let me say, that Tutsis had, that they wanted to overtake the entire East Africa. For them, it was in their thought that they would control the entire East Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Students.
Nange sibikkiririzaamu ebyo. Alabika taata we yalinga mu Tanzania amamix.
Taata we yali mu
Ng'alabika yali
Tanzania.
yakulirayo bukulizi, okitegeera?
Taata we yali mu Tanzania.
Alabika yali
Kyobula n'Abatanzania bamuyamba nnyo. Kitaawe yali mu Tanzania.
yakulirayo bukulizi.
Kitaawe yali mu Tanzania ate obulamu obuseera when you still check kingdom yaabwe yali Karagwe kingdom okijjukira. Kuba ogwo obugabi buliko empewo. But these people don't know, especially the Ugandans. So, like I was saying, we have got the Hutu people who are actually not tall. They are not tall to the size of the Tutsis, and their women are not, the appearance of the Hutu women are not the same appearance with the Hutus. But again, we have some gigantic, because most of the Tutsi, the Hutu people, they are so giant, they're giants. They have that body that the Tutsis don't have. It is very hard for you to find a Tutsi man who is, having a thick body. Let me call it that way. Okay? But most of the Hutu people have that thick. You see that men have the muscles, they are they are a little bit bigger. In fact, they are bigger, not even a little bit. Bigger, not in a way of being fat, but their body. Now, but if I told you to look at the face of Rwanda, you realize that the Tutsis represent the face. Now, why was I explaining about the possibilities of Rwanda experiencing another phase of genocide in case Kagame leaves power, or if we see a Hutu coming into power? Now, these people have been neglected for a very long time, and yet we know they are the biggest population. Now, you're being neglected that even the resources within the country, you do not actually take part into the country's activities. You do not take part into, of course, attaining these or benefiting from the country's program. You do not take part in different social organization thing. You are like people living in your own world, but in the same country. And this is how the Hutus are living in Rwanda. INNOSSETU was telling me that the local government system in Rwanda has actually worked because each local government creates its own fund. It creates its own fund. But you will understand that the government now. Remember, in Africa, in Africa, it's not like the US, where you're gonna find black people are living in Florida with the whites and what. I'm gonna give you an example. We know that very well. When you look at
religion, big among the Hutus and the Tutsis.
Religion is still there, but Protestant. So you will see when you go to Nigeria, you will see there's a certain tribe that lives in the northern part. We have those in the east. We have those in the west. So this is how Africa usually distributes. That you get to know that we know a certain kind of tribe lives in the western part and east and something like that. Now the same thing with Rwanda. You will realize that there is a certain place where the local government system, no matter the religion in Rwanda, Catholic, Protestant, Seventh Days, Muslims, non-religious affiliation, Jehovah's Witness, They also have
Jehovah.
it.
Jehovah so byatugenda
Hmm?
sio byatugenda
We also
Jehovah.
have Yahweh.
Jehovah bateteeza.
So this is how we live. Now you look at a place, Rwanda. When you go to Kigali, you to the town, you'll find a lot of people who are, of course, living in VIP places, and it is hard for you to see the ghettos until you move where the Hutu people reside. You'll understand that a lot of Hutus are in camps. You cannot believe that we have got camps in Rwanda. A president still has these people live in camps, and then you're also bringing other people from other countries to come and take refuge in a country where you have got the people in that country living in camps, living in confined areas. It just does not add up. It just does not add up. That's something.
So Jibijaba was like his Western religion, big amongst the Hutus and the Tutsis. Yes, Jibijaba, and the leading, of course, religion in Rwanda, they are the Catholics, contributing over 43.7%. And of course, the second dominant religion is the Protestants with 37.7%. The seven, the seventh they are Adventists with 11, and of course the Muslims they have a small population in Rwanda, but all of these of course they are what they are divided amongst these people. The problems comes on the regional, of course, imbalances, or on how people are divided in Rwanda are divided depending on locations. You may find the people that are living in the eastern Rwanda, they don't know anything about anything happening in the central or in the western or other parts of Rwanda. For me, I think a country that is having very few tribes, it is easy to manage, but it is the difficult one. With having a certain population contributing with the majority population, we see that prior to the arrival of colonialists, Rwanda had been ruled by the Tutsi dominated monarch since the 15th century. Yeah, and in 1897, Germany established a presence in Rwanda with the formation of alliance with the king, beginning the colonial era. So later, Belgium took control in 1916 during the World War One. Both European nations ruled through the Rwandan king and, of course, perpetuated the pro-Tutsi policy. In Burundi, uh, meanwhile, the ruling faction known as the Genwa emerged and quickly assumed effective control of the country's administration. So, the Genwa, who relied on support from both Hutu and the Tutsi in Burundi, uh, um, who relied for support from the both Hutu and the Tutsi populations to rule, were sometimes perceived within the Burundi as neither Hutu nor Tutsi, but were predominantly of Tutsi origin. So, Rwanda was ruled as a colony by Germany from 1897 to 1916, and the Belgian from 1922 to 1961. Both the Tutsi and the Hutu had been the traditional governing elite within Rwanda, but both colonial powers allowed only the Tutsi to be educated and to participate in colonial government. So such discriminatory policies, uh, of course, contributed to rising. Still doing.
why I said.
And this contributed to raising of resentments among the people. And when the Belgians took over, they believed it could be better governed if they continue to identify the different populations. So in the 1920s, they required
Divide and conquer.
dividing the populations depending on their origins and stuff, traditions. So in 1920s, we see that they required people to identify with a particular ethnic group and classified them accordingly in the census. So they classified them. That's why when you look at the Tutsis, just like Uganda is sometimes also praised. Uganda is divided on very many factors. So you can't say that these people are living in the east, such a tribe. You may find the areas where they are Muslims only, irrespective of their tribe. You go into a place that is that has a lot of Catholics, irrespective of their tribe. That is Uganda. But in Rwanda, despite the religion, mm,
basiramu bagira ate baganda kibasiramu bajjudde tusana kubeera comfortable olaba kugamba abaana bazimba ne bavaayo.
so that is how crazy it is. So in Uganda, it doesn't matter. But in Rwanda, you find out like different people. Like when if you find a community for Tutsi, it is for Tutsi.
For Tutsi, there is no Hutu.
There is no Hutu. If it is a community for Hutus, the Hutus, they are taken to be the second, they're taken to be peasants, if I may say. Dating back from the colonial era. So we see that, like I said, when the Belgians took over, they believed it would be better governed if they continue to identify different populations. So in 1959, the legions reversed its stance um, and allowed the majority Hutu to assume control of the government through the universal elections after the independence. And this is the period where we saw a lot of Tutsis coming to Uganda. Look at Kagame. He came in Uganda in 1950s. Before the genocide, after Belgian when the Belgians turned to east and gave control to the Hutus, most
started
moving out of Rwanda. So actually you said that when you were of course talking about Kagame's early life in Uganda, military officer stuff. He came to Uganda in the 1950s. So this is the period where we see that the Belgians reversed its stance and allowed the majority Hutu to assume control of the government in Rwanda. So a lot of Hutus went to Tanzania.
When the Tutsis left, but you say, Hutu
So
when the Tutsis left, they were not satisfied with the Belgians' what? New decision. But that means when they came with the power, the will to come back. We shall be back.
Power, yeah.
And this is why we see these people here. That means whatever plan they were carrying out, whatever things they were doing, that's why they created their small military armies. Some others were in Congo, others were just here in Tanzania, not only in Uganda. Though we saw, that is why we saw when Museveni was coming in power. When Museveni was coming in power, they said there are forces from Tanzania that helped him. But some of these forces, because there is no one who's going to help you in Africa with no benefit. So they were like, if we help you overcome, will you help us to take over Rwanda? And this is the major thing why even Museveni and Kagame nowadays don't meet. But I have not come to that story yet. Meanwhile, we can continue with our discussion.
So we see that so after the Belgians, of course, allowed the majority Hutu to assume control of the government through universal elections after the independence. This partly reflected internal Belgian domestic politics, in which the discrimination against the Hutu, of course, majority came to be regarded as the similar to the oppression with the region stemming from the Flemish Awaron conflict. And the democratization and empowerment of the Hutu was seen as a just response to the Tutsi domination. So the region policies wavered and flip-flopped considerably during the period leading up to the independence of Burundi and Rwanda. Kitegeera? We know that the Hutu majority in Rwanda had revolted against the Tutsi and, of course, was able to take power. Okitegeera, but we see that the Tutsi, most of the Tutsi fled during that time, fled and created exile communities outside Rwanda, and that is Uganda and Tanzania in particular. So their actions led to the death up of over 200,000 Hutus. So discrimination from colonial period was continued by different Rwandan and Burundian governments, including identity cards and distinguished Tutsi and Hutu.
They had different identities that will distinguish them. Here in Uganda we have one. The only thing that differentiates us are the names, but everything is the same. There is not yet on in action now banana, but for them they this is cycle. Already when you're already telling people you're different from each other.
And the way Belgians did that, bakola census. Bakola census, oyogera amannya go, ekyani, ebbali. Ebbali. So those are the Tutsi in Rwanda. But talking about the Rwandan election this time, talking about the Rwanda's 2024 election, we see that like this, of course, elections matter. They matter. However much we don't have, sometime in Africa, different African countries, we don't have like that drastic change, or we don't see new faces, new presidential faces. But elections matter so much. So Rwanda's presidential and parliamentary elections this year are taking place 3 decades after the genocide, in which some of the 800,000 people were killed. And we see that President Paul Kagame, who helped to, as they say, who helped to end the bloodshed, has been in power ever since, and he's expected to win again in July.
This time it's going to be 99.9.
So under his tenure, the Central African nation of Rwanda has made significant economic strides and, of course, became a leading contributor of the troops to the United Nations peacekeeping forces. But critics say Mr. Kagame has also overseen the repressive state accused of widespread human rights violations, and where people and wealth are reserved for his ethnic Tutsi elites. So it's another elite.
Yeah, they call themselves elites. The Tutsi are elites. So
the election is taking place against the backdrop of rising tensions with the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. Mr. Kagame has accused Congolese officials of backing Hutu rebels who fled after committing genocide in 1994, and who he says plan on returning to finish what they started.
This is why he has the technology. You see, now people are trying to get me. That's this man. This is why he concentrated a lot on Rwanda's technology. Guy Tagala invasion, and he knows the only way to take it out is going on.
naye nga alina high spying network. Kibaye nti e Rwanda kutandikira mu poliisi, ebyambalo bye twambala bye bambala, ebyambalo bya poliisi ebyawano kutandikira ku poliisi genda ku traffic ebyo bambala. Ekyawula nti baaji eno y'e Rwanda, eno y'e Kenya, eno y'e
gundi ezisinga abo bazungu bwe batuwa ebyambalo
tebifaanana ebyebuyindi.
buyindi naye eyambalo ojjukira kaaki yaffe ye kaaki kibambala abaganya abayinza bakuba bakyambala kaaki
There are countries you look,
ate ne prison yaabwe ebalanga
however much nti ebyambalo olumu bifaanagana, but you can look at a soldier n'ogamba oyo ow'e Kenya, ow'e Uganda, when you look at the uniform. Quality. Ne wano eby'e Kenya, eby'e Rwanda, ebimu n'eby'e Uganda bad. Wakuba like nina wano kensoma nalikulaze gundi ye Kenya, nalikulaze gundi ye Kenya ey'abasirikale, nalikulaze gundi ye Kenya ey'abasirikale n'otunula ne Uganda. However much nti nno ziba ze zimu, but eraga nti kino tekifaanagana na kino. There is a difference. Bifaanagana w'obirabira eri
ne bw'obisemberako ebyo bifaanana kuba babibawa. Wano tewali kampani ekola bintu ebyo, babibawa. Kyagala ogamba bakoleza Uganda bomba, kyoyogerako nkitegeera. Kati lwaki ogamba otebisibalala? Gamba mpozi Bannayuganda babi balabika bubi, Bannakenya balabika bulungi.
Si ekyo kyakulabika bulungi, si ekyo kyakulabika bulungi. Sina ngeri gye nnyinza kikunyonnyolamu nekitegeera kyengezaako okwogera. I don't know how I can explain it.
Poliisi ya Uganda erina uniform ziweranga ttaano. Emu eba bbulu.
Sifa kujja kala, bifaanagana, sifa kujja kala. Kuba nebiba bya US era byebimu. Sifa kujja kala.
Kabaki goba owuliramu bulungi ogamba kombati engeri gye bayimiriramu, engeri gye bakwatamu emmundu. Nnyonnyola sikitegedde lwaki biba tebifaanagana. Selection kuba oyinza otuuka n'osanga amagye agamu nga galina abantu nga bampi, agalala nga galina bawanvu. Forces za Kenya ezisinga kati ng'amagye mulimu beeru, abasinga bonna bava ku saidi ya Kenyatta, kati banaatera obbayiwa bateekemu abalutu.
Kenyatta beeru.
Beeru mukwano, beeru n'abakazi beeru. Ndowooza abo abantu be bakyasingayo n'obulungi mu Kenya. Ate nga be basinga mu poliisi. Mu poliisi mulimu abaluuyaluuyi, mu magye abantu bali mu positions ennene nno banaabayiwa bulungi.
Akubira olweyawo.
Yagenda naawe
agamba olinaawe alekerawo okuba olwo. We see that Mr. Kagame has in turn been accused of sowing chaos in the Eastern Congo by backing rebel forces who have carried out massacres and displaced tens of thousands of people in the country. So the election season began as President promoted his country's readiness to receive migrants deported from Britain. So a contentious plan that may never come to fruition So policy analysts and opposition leaders say Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has delayed the first deportation flights until after the July 4th elections in Britain. So we see that who is running and who is likely to win in Kenya today, in Kenya's elections today. Ono notasobola nayo kuwangula Kadagamera bane watunula. Habineza, he's the chairman of opposition Democratic Party of Rwanda. Ono tasobola nayo kuwangula ono. Oyo sinza line tasobola kuwangula oyo naawe. Tasobola naawe. So, Mr. Kagame, who is a 60-year-old man, is expected to win. Who is expected to win a fourth term, according to observers. There are no independent polls in Rwanda. In 2015, he oversaw a referendum that changed the term limits, ensuring that he can extend his tenure until 2034. So he won in 2017 with almost 99% of the vote in election that observers said was rigged. The arrest and prosecution of opposition members, the intimidation of activists, and accusations that many voters were forced to choose Mr. Kagame all pointed to the voting that was not free or fair. Independent observers and rights groups said. So far, 9 candidates have submitted papers to the National Electoral Commission of Rwanda. The commission, which can accept the paper, of course, the commission which can accept the papers but reject and nullify or reject or nullify the candidacy has aside from Mr. Kagame cleared only 2, Frank Habineza, the leader of opposition in Democratic Green Party of Rwanda, and Philippe Mpayimana, an independent candidate. The commission blocked the candidates of Diane Rigara, an opposition figure who also had been barred from running in 2017 over alleged irregularities. So this time, the Electoral Commission said Ms. Rigara has failed to submit a criminal record statement and instead provided a copy of court's judgment. It also said some of the identity documents from supporting citizens that she had submitted either did not exist or did not match those on electoral roll. Ms. of course, Rigara, who has jailed on accusations of forgery and of inciting an insurrection after trying to run the previous elections before judges cleared her of all charges. Suggested that the commission's decision this year was politically motivated. Why not? You let me run, she asked President Kagame in the social media post. So this is the second time you cheat me out of my right campaign. So Victory Ingabire, a fierce critic of Mr. Kagame, has also expressed interest in running. In March, a Rwandan court blocked her from joining the contest, citing her past convictions for terrorism and genocide denial. Ms. Ingabire was given a 15-year sentence, but Mr. Kagame commuted jail time in 2018. In April, she lodged a case at the East African Court of Justice challenging the recent ruling from the Rwandan court. The Electoral Commission is expected, of course, to announce the final list of candidates for election on June 14th. The official campaign period began on June 22nd. So, how do people in Rwanda vote? We see that the Electoral Commission has said that some 9.5 million people have so far been registered to vote in this year's presidential and parliamentary elections. Up to 2 million of them are first-time voters. So the election will be a 3-day affair on July 14th. Rwandans living abroad will begin voting at the country's embassies and democratic missions. On July 15th this year, voters in Rwanda will go to polls to choose their president and 53 of the 80 seats in the lower house of parliament. On July 16th, the remaining 27 members, who include representatives of the youth and disabled, will be elected. So the Election Commission will, of course, publish provincial elections results by July 20th this year, and it will announce the final results on 27th this year, about the 2 weeks after voting day in Rwanda. So that is how the Rwandan election is going to be conducted. And so if you have friends in Rwanda, tell them to go and vote. But I've seen something different about the Rwanda's elections. Uh, it's something different. I've seen like something different about Rwanda's election compared to Uganda. The last time we had elections here in Uganda, it was in 2021. 2021.
Mm.
It was recorded and said that the voters had reduced
Mm.
by that time. But we see in Rwanda, we see over 2 million people that are engaging in election for their first time. They have never voted for a president or any.
I don't get that. But those are
Take it.
good.
So that is how, of course, elections are going to be conducted. Amongst, of course, amidst the challenges, of course, Rwanda is going through now, because the biggest challenge African countries are having today is the unemployment level. Actually, not even Africa, the entire world, the high levels of unemployment. Which again, and high levels of unemployment, high levels of unemployment, they are normally caused by poverty.
Mm.
Because if at all someone has money, can create a small business to do something.
Mm.
If at all someone has money, someone can be able to take his or her children to school for studying, so that they can be employed in the future. If at all there is an opportunity. When we look at most of the Rwandese and the Hutus in particular, these are people, Hutus. Remember, we have even the Twas in Rwanda. These are people that are totally uneducated. Most of them, they are uneducated. So how will someone employ someone who is not educated to this era? Because if at all you're going to be you want, actually, it could be the reason why we see a lot of our brothers and sisters going to Arabian countries to look for money, because they think the greener pastures are in those countries. But if you calculate whatever they invest in to go in those countries, those Arabian countries, it can create for them something here. It can create for them a business home. Again, I've seen a lot of people selling out their land.
Someone gets 6 million.
Someone gets 6 million. He travels to Dubai, travels to Qatar, travels to Jordan, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Ochitegera, Turkey. Someone gets 18 million, 20 million, goes to USA to be employed.
Yes, there's no employment.
There are no jobs
To
ready for
spend
these
5 years
people.
of hustle for you to settle like in the US.
So, poverty. When we look at most of the Rwandese, I've seen most of the Rwandese, irrespective of the Tutsis, or the Hutus, or the Twas, Michani, all the Rwandese that come to Uganda, they don't want to go back. Uganda is not good. Like no, like when you talk about employment issues and stuff, even Ugandans are unemployed. They don't have what to do. They don't have what to do. So they also actually, when you look at most of them, the youths, they are going to those to those Arabian countries. They don't have what to do. But Rwandese come here to earn, like, at least they say at least Uganda is
To sell
somehow.
groundnuts.
Okitegera?
Most of them are hawking groundnuts. The women are doing prostitution,
Okitegera?
working in
So it
bars.
means no call prostitution in Rwanda. It is also temuli said. Okitegeera?
Bakwata ng'otambula bwereere.
You see? You see? Rwanda, a lot of Rwandan people are going through poverty. When there is an account, I have a Facebook account where I have majority of the Rwandese people, majority of the Rwandese. But you look at these people, someone like Yekuba Selfie Muchalo. Ate when this person is consistent about the photos byateka ku social media ng'alaba waali wabbe, when you look at women otunula siringi ya kibaawo waggulu, but they are posting collection, they are posting. You look at someone is totally in the real village, but this is someone is putting on nice shoes, someone is who is showing that is of course is trying to make ends meet. But when he's in the village, real being in the village is not bad, but someone who is exposing poverty. So a lot of Rwandese, nedda nedda sigamba nti no oba nina kyagala wabula ekyo kindaga ekirwenda, that is kindaga ekiri e Rwanda. It amplifies what happens in Rwanda. It amplifies what is really happening in Rwanda. You know, you also know that we have a lot of Rwandese here. Very many of them, and they don't want to go back there. Abasajja naye bababonyabonya.
Nomala ofunako omwalo n'omugamba munnange ngenda kuleeta wano tasulayo.
Abasajja olaba ne bababonyabonya abakazi abo.
Bannange tugende.
Abasajja ne bababonyabonya olaba abakazi abo, even if they mistreat those women who come from that, they don't go back. They don't want to go back.
Bo nga bo be batabonyaabonyeza abasajja.
They don't want to go back.
Emitima gyakaluba.
They don't want to go back because of what is happening here. First of all, the freedom of press is restricted, like there is no freedom of expression in Rwanda. I was at the beginning of this show, I was saying that actually this guy is from your area. He's now a minister. I will not mention his name, but I remember after killing the other prominent blogger in Uganda, the guy said that you may be having the freedom to talk, but you have the freedom after talking. He was quoting him. Like that is what happens in Rwanda. You may be free to talk. You may be free to do whatever what you want. Like a lot of analysts looked up into Kenya's protests. Like they don't have a source. Like a lot of people who so a lot of people have analyzed the protests in Kenya that they think they don't have a source. When you look at the population that is the people that are rioting, these are youths, which someone oli bw'atalowooza nti naagenda ku interpreting a financial bill. Ekitegeere? Just like it is in Uganda, it is very hard to find buli muntu, you find someone on the street to interpret the budget. No, but you know that people, whenever it is time to release or to address about the budget, what you mean about tebafaayo? Just because abamu tebamanyi like nti budget eyo ye running ensi era nti tebamanyi abamu abasinga kati ng'abavubuka tebamanyi budget eyo. Kati omwana wa myaka 16 budget agimanyiiko ki? Oli waba tategeera, if someone nga tategeera bulungi ng'ali mu 22 years, budget aba agimanyiiko ki? Okitegeera? So ati lwaki omunyambi oyo agamba muno teekawo ekigwenyi. Teekawo ekigwenyi. Teekawo ekigwenyi.
ayagala feemu naye tuli desperate naye aleka naye ali desperate otuutu ngayogera ngandi eno njagataaki njogera ennyo nkoowa
Namala kuppa
kyogamba oli gasongera gwayogera
ate ekyo sikyogedde
lwakyogambira namala
enkooye.
naye wali onsubye okooye naye ma nsonyamba kukwekako ku kamera
Kasita era nkuyamba. Kasita era nkola ki? Kasita era nkuyamba.
newulira bubi n'obusikiza nositukirawo n'ogenda ewu noza ngaogamba kiryawo kyebase nze nfa wano
Kyonna kikiri. Nina byolowoozaako bituufu. Right. Means all by the Tanzanian troops. Oops.
byogedde bituufu bwatyo bwe yabyogedde
Eh?
byobadde explanation gyobadde excellency gyobadde gyayogedde naye ogaye mulalundo bannakenya bameka bawuliriza shows ngaekyo kirayigiriza abantu ki Mara Black Hot Fire Network. Oh God. Okay, thanks. Nena amala jalo ku YouTube n'abyogerawo byamugazanga kutulima. Okay, in a mental problem. I'm imagining Mugatamangare. That is terrible. Eh. Uh-huh. Um, so, like I was saying, if at all there is development, if at all people who don't live in Rwanda may not understand or feel the pain that the majority, the majorities of people living in Rwanda are experiencing. Because, believe me or not, if you decide to talk about these issues, at times you get attacked by other Africans who are even far away from East Africa. And there is a lot of course, there is a lot of connection between Uganda and Rwanda, and also Rwanda in the northern part of Tanzania compared to any other East African country. So a Ugandan understands Rwanda better than any other East African country. And I recall there was a certain time um, when Rwandans were being murdered, Rwandese people were being murdered here in a very weird way. And that was the time where the people who came from Rwanda wanted to go back to Rwanda after, of course, Kagame took over. And after some time, he made some constitutions, and himself, he was like, it is okay for people to come back. We should not be having Rwandese refugees, but we still have refugees from Rwanda in Uganda, which we still have refugees from Rwanda in Tanzania, which to me does not make sense. Because if we still have a country that is not, of course, going through conflicts like the world sees, why should we have people still living as refugees outside? So when Rwandese people said they want to go back, and some of them started demonstrating, there was a certain time that was being carried out here in Uganda. At that time, we had the Inspector General of Police, oyo guy ogwo bakwata bamwitangani, Kayihura, who was in power. At that time, he was the Inspector General of Police at that time, and it is believed he was a Tutsi. And he also came during the days, so he knew Kagame, they were so close. So this guy was like, all right, it's okay for those who want to go back. And if I told you you're someone who came from Rwanda as a refugee, it is fine if you want to go back and stuff. And they filled like a lot of buses, and they started traveling back to, to Rwanda. But a lot of people who were left behind, of course, uh, uh, knew that these people are going to Rwanda, and they were happy about it. Until with the time when people realized that these people were not entering Rwanda. These people were not entering Rwanda, but they were being killed. I remember there is a time where we had that case on the International Criminal Court, where when the ICC wanted to arrest that IG, the Inspector General, the IGP of Uganda. I guess you guys heard of that when the president of Uganda came in and said they cannot allow the ICC to come and arrest people from Uganda and all that. I remember there is that chaos. If you guys remember that chaos, because a survivor of this chaos actually flee and left. And of course, when she reached, she of course went and reported this case to court, and she wanted this Inspector General of Police at that time, who was called Kaihura, to, of course, be arrested and, of course, um, sentenced according to this particular crime of killing a thousand of the people who were heading to Rwanda. But and she also claimed that this was something that was done. This was a joint effort between Kagame and, of course, this guy. Now, there is usually a reason why Kagame does not welcome Rwandese people whom he left behind. One, he feels like these people refused to join. Their fathers, their parents refused to join because everyone who fought and rebelated, the way he calls it, Rwanda from genocide, um, is in Rwanda. They pick their families, they are in Rwanda right now. But he claimed that those who want to come after he fought for Rwanda's peace actually should not be allowed to come to Rwanda. And there is also another reason why he basically does not like Rwandese people who have been in Uganda to return to Rwanda. He does not trust them. He feels like these are spies. There is a certain time where he demanded to actually there is when we had the borders of Uganda and Rwanda closed, and a lot of people thought this was an economical struggle and all. It was much of politics. And during that time, he said the only person he wanted to meet and talk to was the son of the current president of Uganda at the time. Like he's the person he wanted to talk to, and if he talks to him, that's not a lot of stuff, whoever. Um, but like I told you, there is a lot of stories that social media or the internet does not show out there. Uh, as as we had this issue of course, military forces entering Rwanda to fight and, of course, liberate Rwanda from the so-called genocide. There are a lot of people who were involved in this. And we had, though Kagame was funded and he had too much power, Kagame showed the desire to take over. We also had one guy who was called Renjema, Fred Renjema at that time, and he was killed. He was in the struggle throughout, but he was also killed as soon as they entered Rwanda, when they started having the war, this rebellion, and of course the attack to and the fight against genocide. It is believed that Ranjema was shot at the back, and people who witnessed or people who were around at that time believe say that Kagame shot him because Ranjema was supposedly he was supposed to be uh, the president after they take over. But Ranjema wasn't so much into the single tribal union. He believed that all Rwandese people should be living as Rwandese. He believed that they should forgive whatever they had with the Hutus and the Rwandese and the Tutsis should live as one, and they should change from the colonial rule and embrace each other as the citizens of Rwanda, which Kagame did not agree with. Kagame said, we the Tutsis are the leader of Rwanda and nobody else can lead Rwanda. Now they had these issues and it led to one disagreement to another throughout their enforcement until, of course, Kagame shot Renjema. And of course, he doesn't claim that he did, he doesn't agree. But until now, we still had a lot of people after Kagame took over, those who believed in Renjema's uniting Rwanda under one umbrella of Love Rwanda. Of course, they flee, they left Kagame in Rwanda and they came back to Uganda because despite them being Tutsis, they do not believe in the segregation between the Tutsis and the Hutus, and they believed in the, of course, they believed in Rengema's, of course, thoughts as well. And so they had, the moment Kagame became the president of Rwanda, they decided to leave. They said, we have ended, of course, the genocide. We are leaving because Rwanda is still going to be the same if we cannot live and share equally with the Hutus. So they left and came back, and Kagame swore to not allow those people back in Rwanda
Allegedly
at that
shot.
time. So allegedly shot, yeah. so so like he refused, they should never come back and all that stuff. Um, so with the time and as time went on, these people again wanted to to come back to Rwanda, and then the dude was like, how how can we how can we how can we come back? We cannot come back and all that. So Rwanda, sorry, they wanted to come back, and Kagame was like, you can't. There is no we can allow you
He
come.
was the founder of RPF.
Yes, mm, he was the founder. But he was the founder of this particular party that Kagame is in right now. But again, he himself, he believed that they can unite together. For him, he wanted them to be one, Rwandese people, because he believed it was the whites who were bringing the segregation, which I think Kagame allegedly had too much anger towards this entire thing that he could not, of course, Nshungerenzi, he could not allow such, of course, the Hutus to be together. We know that Renjema was the founder, but there was still, Kagame still claims he is the founder of this whole thing. Mm. Renjema led the splinter group of the 10,000 NRA troops in an invasion of northern Rwanda, what became the RPF. He chose this date as it was close to Ugandan Independence Day on the 9th October. He invaded on the 1st October 1990. So Renjema is among the first people. Shegera. Shegeza no guy yakirimu n'okusooka ne Museveni. Hmm? Kiba ki?
Yajema yajema nti yalinayo emagye ga Uganda
Hmm.
ate yali muforonasa ne Museveni.
Hmm.
Kitegeeza Kagame yajja luvannyuma. Kagame is younger than this one.
Yeah, Kagame came later on. Renjema was the ideology of fighting genocide was begun by this particular guy. But it is very funny that people hardly talk about them. People hardly talk about them. They say that Renjema was shot in the head and died at Nyabwenshongozi Hill. His death was kept secret for a month so as not to harm the morale. You know, there is a dispute about the exact circumstances of Renjema's death. The official line of Kagame's government was that Renjema was killed by a stray bullet. Historian Gerard Pruni states that he had established from incontrovertible evidence, including an interview with an eyewitness to the killing, that Renjema was killed by his sub-commander, Peter Bayingana, following an argument over tactics. and excused his readers for having accepted the cooked version of the fact. But even this Peter Bayingana, Peter Bayingana actually is not even the one who shot this dude. There is a lot of controversies, and this is why people hardly talk. We hardly hear stories of Renjema. We hardly hear, even if at all, by the way. Kagame himself should be giving credit to this guy because he was the founder of this entire thing. He hardly even mentioned him. And I bet if the Rwandese people even know about Renjema, he hardly mentions about Renjema. He hardly mentions about him. Yet he was the founder of the particular party that he is in right now. And even though they say that gunshots, that shot he was shot by an Austrian gunshot, that things can happen when people are at war, bullets, of course, running all over. But why that particular person at that particular time? But anyway, it is believed that this guy, there is an allegation that Renjema has children in Uganda. Dijaba, thank you so much for being here with us throughout these 2 hours. Yeah, take care too. It has nice. It has been nice having you here. So that he has children here, and Kagame himself. There are children in big positions in the Ugandan military government that he thinks are Renjema's children. And each time he feels like there was a time when they had wrangles with Uganda. He thought that this is why even when you read articles, he still says there are a lot of people who want to invade Rwanda. There are people who want to come and, of course, take over. And he believes that children of Renjema who remained in Uganda want to come and overthrow Kagame's leadership. And you can see the union or the friendship or the relationship Kagame had with the current president of Uganda is no longer the same. Before they would have different visits. All the time Kagame would be in Uganda, the president would be in Rwanda. They would meet, have dinner, discussions. They had a strong bond until Kagame felt like the current president of Uganda is floating. It is allegedly said that there are claims that, of course, Renjema's children that remained here actually want to, of course, overthrow Kagame. And this is why. And the guy is preparing himself. Kagame is not letting go power soon. Yeah, that's what I should say.
So we see that Rwanda Rwandan government uh, has continued to face, of course, abusive prosecutions, enforced disappearances, and have at the time was died under unexplained circumstances. So we have been talking about um, limited freedom of expression in Rwanda and how people are not given in rights in Rwanda to express themselves. If you think you can talk whatever you want in your country, it is a different case with Rwanda. So, John Williams Ntwali, he was a journalist in Uganda, in Rwanda, died in, of course, in suspicious circumstances. You see that the authorities said he died in a road accident, but they provided no evidence of such an accident, and held, of course, a hasty trial, essentially behind closed bars, leaving many questions unanswered. The Rwandan So this is not the first journalist to die in Rwanda. There are a lot of journalists, and when it comes to journalists in Rwanda, it is a different case. You can be killed. Era simanyi bano gye baali bayita. Simanyi bano gye baali bayita. Gye baayita nga bagenda. Bakoma mu Gisenyi. So the Rwandan army deployed the troops to Eastern Democratic or Republic of Congo to provide direct military support to the M23 armed group, helping it expand its control over the Rutshuru and neighboring Masisi territories. This is clear. However much the Rwandan government has at many occasions denied this to have engaged or to have been supporting this M23 group, but it provided military support to these people to expand in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Yet these people have killed a lot of Congolese, including actually some Ugandan, of course, people. There is something I saw with these M23 people. These were people that were not invading Uganda, but they were playing their game around the border. Okitegeera baali ku border n'engendo tebasala ng'abantu babaleka they could leave people to cross to Uganda without touching them. Those are the M23. Niba biseera so we see that the Rwandan-backed M23 rebels have committed unlawful killings, rapes, and other apparent war crimes since the late 2022. Attacks with explosive weapons in populated areas of North Kivu province killed and injured civilians, damaged infrastructure, and of course exacerbated a catastrophic, of course, humanitarian crisis. Security forces in Rwanda continue to clear up the streets of Kigali and detain people deemed undesirable, such as the street children, street vendors. So, I was saying that security forces in Rwanda continue to clear up their